Welcome to the Sexy Freedom Media Podcast, a place to discuss pain, passion, and pursuits.
Let's get it. I want to feel alive.
Breathe.
Make some moves.
Protect the throne. This is Sexy Freedom Media Podcast.
Welcome to the Sexy Freedom Media Podcast. It's your host, Helen Edwards, and
January Liddell. Aloha.
we are excited to have our returning guest, Dr. Gretchen Gavero, back. And today our topic is overcoming jealousy in women's entrepreneurship. This is huge. Welcome back, Dr. Gretchen.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back. It's always great to be with you guys.
Thank you for coming so bright and early today. Gretchen, we're just going to go right into it. As women, as entrepreneurs, we do deal with a lot of different feelings and things that happen over the course of our journey as business women. So one of our questions is, what are the psychological roots of jealousy in competitive environments, and how can women in business reframe these emotions for personal growth?
Yeah, well, let's get into it. First, I think it's important for us to be very clear about what jealousy means. And so I just went to Google and just typed in, define jealousy. So we're all clear about what that is for today. So Google says it's a complex emotion that includes feelings ranging from suspicion to rage to fear to humiliation. That's a wide range of different emotions. And I think of it as, it's not so much about other people, really. It's about us. Like in my head, we want something that someone else has. But psychologically too, I see it as a projecting our upset about not having it onto the other person who has them. And like any emotion, I see it as a signal, like a signal from our minds and our heart. And I think about, okay, what is the signal trying to tell me? Again, a signal, just like any other emotion, anger, fear, love, it's not a character trait, but just a signal from our nervous system. So I think of emotions as, once they come to our awareness, like your brain will have to know what to do about it. And so this is where patterns come in, like patterns from past experiences, growing up, past job experiences, past teamwork. And so I see it when jealousy comes to the awareness, I see it as, wait a minute, is there like a pattern of jealousy that I have that leads to things like doubting myself, or when you feel that, is it usually a pattern where you turn that into something that you motivate yourself into doing, teaming up, collaborating, or pursuing something healthy in your goals, like professionally or personally? And again, an invitation, like, where is this pattern coming from? Yeah. So I see it as an invitation for self-reflection. And so when we think of patterns, some patterns that grow jealousy can be from so many things. And so there are three things when I'm thinking about it that is very common, comes up in my sessions all the time, in my talks with friends. And it's a huge thing is comparing ourselves to other people, right? Social comparison. And it's so tempting because we're on social media all the time, or when we go to networking events, that consciously or subconsciously that kicks in, where we measure how much we've achieved, what we have, against someone else's, like from their Instagram pages or from their LinkedIn pages. And then on top of that, if you have a tendency for perfectionism and you see a bar that is being reached by someone else, but in your mind you haven't, then it becomes a trap, because now you're thinking, wait a minute, I have to be more productive or better. I have to have more money, than this person, a nicer YouTube account, than compared to what I have. And so all of those lead to things like imposter syndrome. So I think those three things, among so many, can just be like a trap, for us. And so Me just talking about it right now, it makes me like chest tight, and I'm like starting to get all that adrenaline is starting to get doesn't feel right anymore. Yeah. And so whenever we have those kinds of feelings, I say, okay, wait a minute. Let me just take a step back, because the brain is really awesome. Once you realize that I need to change this experience meaning for myself right now, I'm feeling this jealousy, rather than thinking this is something really bad or I'm bad for feeling that, I say, okay, it's an emotion, it's a signal. This is my brain telling me that there's something I need to clarify about myself, about my goals, about my values. And so you can ask questions like, what is this trying to tell me? And when I see someone, what is someone's success trying to tell me about what I want, for myself? And how can I channel all of this jealous energy into taking action, rather than ruminating about the things I don't have and how I wish the other person doesn't have it. Um, so, gosh, there's so many. If I can just keep going for this question just for a bit. Um, so let's see. When I can't shake off these feelings, because we all have them, even if it's like a little bit, we can try so hard to not have them, but sometimes, it's just, again, just like any other emotions. I try to think about it as, okay, if if my daughter is a teenager and trying to think about these things, how would I help her? Or if I think of my best friend feeling like this, and I'm trying to we're talking to each other, what would I say? What advice would I give them? And again, going back to imagining my kids as teenager, just like makes me focus. Yeah. The other thing is, one way to take care of that too is the role of self-compassion. Oh my goodness, this is like a very big thing, because once you recognize this feeling and you realize that this is an invitation to be gentle and compassionate towards myself, then I can watch this feeling without without judging myself or judging the other person, because it just adds like so much pressure, right? And when we see things without judgment, we become more open, we become more curious, and then now you're actually more in business, because now you're more productive in using this energy. Looping it back to psychology and neuroscience, this is where we get to remember that your brain can change, can learn, as long as you guide it properly. So we can change our mindset about that. And knowing that your brain can unlearn these patterns of comparison, perfectionism, jealousy, it really can, it's so hopeful, because then you can just reframe it anytime, in the moment with practice. Yeah. And then with friends, when we're talking with each other.
Wanted to touch on compassion.
Yes.
I find that it's easy for me to be compassionate to other people. But when it comes to being compassionate to myself, I think the I think I've raised a bar for myself that like it's hard for me to give myself compassion because I feel like I could do better or I can, the whole perfectionist type of attitude I feel it's very true for me and I find that giving myself compassion is very challenging to do. So for those of us who are high achievers, who are focused and driven and all of that, what are some of your suggestions to teach us how to be more compassionate to ourselves?
I love this question because it doesn't just apply to this topic, it applies to everyone. Right. So, um, especially if our natural tendency is to be givers, to be there for others, you can leverage that. You can tie that into how can I use that as a motivator to give to myself and be more compassionate to myself. And so I think of it as, if I want to be good for others, I have to make sure that I am walking the talk, that I am good to myself too. Okay? And we have to remember self-care, self-compassion, self-love, whatever the term is. The more you do that for yourself, the better you are for other people. the better you are for your business, the better you are for your kids, the better you are for your audience. Because why, if you think of the question, if you ask, how come I'm not? What's the barrier? How come I don't want to be as compassionate to myself as I am to other people? And really answer the question, because the answer will not make sense. And you don't want to live your life following something that doesn't make sense, right?
That's so key, Dr. Gretchen. And I say that because I was talking to the mind engineer. His name is Tommy. Love the mind engineer. If you haven't heard of him or seen him, go check him out. And a lot of what he practices or teaches us to do is to ask those simple questions that we overlook. Questions like, why aren't I compassionate to myself? And that's a question that I don't even think I've asked myself. So you're right. Asking us those questions and really authentically, honestly answering them, I think is going to help us. So thank you for inspiring us.
Yes, thank you for touching on that subject of the jealousy in the entrepreneurship world. One of the things that actually has been coming up for me lately is I recently had a friend talk to me and say how she's going to be withdrawing herself from a circle of friends that we have. And she was very just forward about it. She just said, I feel like you all are moving forward and I'm getting left behind. And I think I just need to take a step back from everybody and just spend some time with myself and with, with God. And I was like, okay. But when I heard that, this was not the first time I had heard one of my really close friends tell me this. This was actually the fourth time that I'd heard it from a different friend. And I thought about it for a bit and I thought, how can I respond to this and really think about it? Because my emotions were really affected. I felt very sad about it because one, it hurts to see a really close friend of mine feel that way. But then two, I knew immediately it was comparison, like you had said. And so my response to her was just very graciously saying, protect your mental wellness first. If this is what you feel you need to do, I love you right where you're at. It's totally okay to take time to yourself. And if you choose to circle back later to us, we're here because our friendships are not built on our achievements. They're built on the roots that we keep watering and the connection we keep making, no matter where we are in life. But big but here. I said comparison really is the thief of joy. And I feel like that's what's really going on right here. And I just want you to sit with that for a while. And sure enough, she came back with, you're right. Thank you for saying that to me. I needed to hear that because that's what it is. And I said, I know what this sounds like because the same words you just said to me about all of us going further and you feeling like you're getting left behind or feeling like you can't connect with us is exactly what A, B, and C friends said to me. And where are they now? They're hardly around. And that, again, that's still okay. You do what's best for you. It's just sad to me because we love you so much and we want to see you here with us. So, yeah, jealousy amongst friends, even who are all high achievers or who are all trying to make their way to do more, be more. It's exciting, but at the same time, if there's one person or even two in the group who feel like I can't relate to you all anymore, it's, what do you do in those moments?
Gosh, because I always think of dynamics as everyone has a hand in it, even if the even if we wish that it wasn't the comparison or the jealousy, like whoever the starter was, right? Um, because yes, that for that person, there's a lot of, again, invitation. There's inner work that can be done. And if you are really mindful, especially if you're focused on really wanting to grow your business or your career, then this can be something useful. But if there's a lot more to that, obviously, right? It's not that has to be explored. on the but there's also that's also feedback on the friend side too. Even if we may be thinking I'm being the cheerleader, or I my vibe is really to lift other people up. It's also an invitation when we're having that kind of interaction where, okay, wait, what happened? How was my message, not being put out there properly? Was I too much because I'm so excited about my thing that I missed the cues that my some of my other friends are feeling, like they're falling behind. And so there's invitation for all parties to be reflective. And I think if I were to imagine, if I was the person talking to your friend at the moment, I'll probably say that out loud just to put it out there that, okay, I hear you, but I also want to let you know that, yeah, I'd be honest. And I'm kind of I'm hurt about that, or this makes me feel so down because I'm thinking, how could I have been different, you know, around you? And so then the space feels like, okay, this is a shared, thing. I'm not going to continue to, um, just because you're leaving, I'm just gonna ignore that and then continue to pursue whatever I'm doing. And so I think I think that kind of talking out some of your feelings, if it feels safe, and it should feel safe if this is a good friendship, right? Talking that out just creates a space where um, whatever your friend's experience is affecting is shared. There's impact to that, and that reassuring, just like what you said, Helen, reassuring that I love you, I'm here for you. Yeah. And I love how you balanced it with, but I want to let you know, I think this is comparison because I think those are what true friends are. You call them out, right? Where we have this relationship where you're just super honest about things. You're gentle and graceful, but you're there to call them out too because no one else will.
I've been in that same situation, Helen, where I just wanted to not be a part of, the group. This was years ago, okay, years ago, and now it's taken a lot of time and a lot of effort to know really who I am and where I stand, and be mindful too of where everyone is. And I think that's the other thing for those of us that have achieved, things. Do we draw the line, or where do we draw the line to share like our success, and to still be compassionate to our friend who is still starting out? Like how do we balance the two?
I love this question, Jesus, because it's like it's like in therapy, right? Um there is so much to share and so much to give, especially if your tendency is to if we're helpers, yeah. And but we have to also be clear about what the other person is asking. And so we have to invite them to share, what do you need? Yeah. Because if they don't know that, we we're left assuming and we may be giving the wrong thing that they need in that moment, like the advice. Like in any relationship, sometimes someone just wants to be listened to. They don't want your advice, but we don't know that. Well, no, the other person doesn't know that unless you tell them. And so there's lots of communication practice that needs to happen. And so as the giver or the friend who may be just getting it off, taking off, then I would I would inquire first. That's another thing too in psychology. People want to talk about themselves, right? And sometimes even the hurtful parts, because it feels good to hear, to let all of this out in words and then have an audience to just give you feedback that, you know what, you're not out of your mind. Your feelings are valid, your problems are valid. And hey, I'm here. Friend, I love you. What do you need? Yeah. How can I help? I think those three questions are super powerful in any situation.
Ooh, all good stuff. But I think this next question is going to really help uh, boost people who are feeling comparison or a little bit of jealousy and envious towards one another. How can female entrepreneurs cultivate a mindset of abundance rather than scarcity when faced with competition?
So this scarcity mindset, it assumes that there's not enough to go around, that because someone else has it or has the thing that you want, or they're doing that, that you can't do it anymore, that you don't want that anymore. And because we know that each brain is different, each brain is unique, each life story is unique, this mindset is flawed. Yeah. The brain is also too smart and creative that if you guide it well, you'll find the version of what you see in other and admire in other people in yourself. So again, all of this really is an invitation for for self-reflection. So first, if you find yourself in that situation, I really think that the practice of gratitude can ground you, because imagine approaching this situation or mindset with just being thankful for things. And then, because when you are, it opens up this possibility of, if there's a scarcity mindset, there has to be an abundance mindset. There has to be the opposite. So you focus on, okay, what are you grateful for having right now? And then be grateful that you see other people having and doing the things that you would want for yourself, because that means that, man, it can be done, that you could have that too. If people have done that, then you could also. Plus, it would be easier for you because then you have a blueprint. You have examples and models to follow that actually saves you resources. Yeah. And then whatever market it is or industry, you know that there's a market for whatever your skills are. Yeah. And so that should motivate. And so, for example, for me, creating a private practice, like my own clinic, or just being a doctor in general, is such a great example, because if I think, oh, there's so many clinics already, psychiatry clinics in Honolulu, I shouldn't do it. That's so limiting, you know. I can't. Can you imagine if every single person who decided to open a clinic think that there will only be one clinic in this community? But there's so much demand. Yeah. And so also it this mindset doesn't work, because even if, like, in my profession, there could be like 100 psychiatrists, we go through the same foundation training, but we go to different schools. I have a different style. I have a very, very different style from any other psychiatrist that I know. And so that already shuts down this mindset that there's not enough to go around. Now, a bigger thing is, maybe a lot of the audience who may be watching this is like social media, like when we're outside of our community, like we're all of US or global kind of like industry. Like for super recently when I started my channel, my YouTube channel, I was so scared because I have to research and look at all of this beautiful like channels and fancy graphics and all of that stuff. And then like millions of subscribers, right? And so part of the preparation, I had to see what's out there. But if I focus on comparing how many views and subscribers other people have, I will never start, because I started zero, and that if I focus on that zero, that's so limiting. But yet that if I focus on those, is a setup for jealousy. It's a setup, it grows the scarcity mindset. And then where am I at? I'm left wasting energy being upset that I can't, that I'm limited. And so instead, I focus on learning and just admiring, like, how do people do things, and just really like celebrating other people's success, because now I'm thinking, if they can do that, they started where I started. Yeah. So I could do it too. And realizing that I know a lot of things are long games. And I think maybe that's why people get trapped in this mindset, because they want things now. But every big thing started with something small. There's like a long story of hard work and journey, behind that.
I like the fact that you acknowledged about competition and how um, we are, we tend to, and I think that's just human nature, is that competition is always a word that is prevalent. But as I've done personal development and learned through other gurus, it's really about collaboration. And I think that's the one word for this year that I'm trying to work with is collaboration. Before it was the scarcity mindset, before it was the there's other financial planners, there's other, financial people that they can go to. And I always got timid about it. But as time progressed, I'm in the mindset now of collaboration and how can we partner up with each other? And it's so much better to partner up. I think we can do so much better together than separately. And the whole competitiveness or competitive nature should actually be in the back burner because, and this is just my thought process, because I feel with the whole competitive nature, it really does give you kind of, so there's friendly competitiveness, right? But then there's that competitive nature where it's like you have to be better than everyone else. And that kind of mindset I feel can be limiting because, the way I look at it too is that there's so many other smarter people than me, smarter, beautiful. That's totally fine. I feel like it's important to be surrounded by that so that I can be the better version of myself. So when I think of competitiveness, it's more of competing with, can I be a better version uh, today than I was yesterday? And for me, that's more of a, through all the studies, through all the, books, everything that I've read, that to me is more key is being, competitive with myself. What strategies can women use to turn feelings of jealousy into motivation and collaboration instead of rivalry?
Yes, first off, you have to try to use that energy for something good. And there has to be a regular reflection of just checking where you're at mindset wise and feelings wise, as far as that. I love asking when I see things that other people have that I'm striving for, and notice how I phrase that, I'm striving for that, I want that too. It's not saying I want that. It's not saying I don't want them to have that. I just want it for myself. One is there's too many words and it's confusing. It takes more energy, to do that. And so really when I see other people have and do the things that I admire, and that's another thing too, like be in admiration rather than jealousy or competition, because admiring feels better. Like even if you just say it, like your heart feels like you're celebrating. There's actually a cool science around that, a science of awe. It really like turns up all of the serotonin. And remember, serotonin feels good, makes you feel good in the moment, makes you feel connected. It makes you feel like you're trusting people, you're relying on people, you can rely on people. It makes you trust that there's a lot to go around. So it's tying together abundance mindset. And so I think about, okay, let me just check in, channel my energy, and then, like you said, January, look for chances to collaborate. Now, I think one reflection point is if you know that there's a lot to go around, let's say audience wise, yeah, like you're selling books. There's so many people who want books. There's billions of people who are out there buying books. There's a lot for you, there's a lot for other people, there's plenty to go around. That feels so freeing. It's like I'm a solo practitioner. I'm the only practitioner in my clinic. And there's lots of psychiatrists in Honolulu, even though we need more because there's a lot of need. But the joy of running this clinic is just so awesome because of the collaborators, especially the female collaborators, because they know how it is to run a business as a mom while juggling relationships and all of that stuff. And from my experience, like my clinic is doing well because it gets a lot of referral from the community, but I'm not marketing. It's all because of the collaborators. Yeah. And and sometimes I hear patients telling me a doctor referred them to me, and I don't even know this doctor. Somehow they just heard my name from someone because they thought I was someone who's who's a good provider, or someone who's kind, And so I make sure that when that's happening, I take care of those relationships. If there's a chance for me to say thank you, or even when I'm talking to a patient and just say, cheer on their doctor so they trust them more, all of that too. Like I do that. So my point is there are the collaboration part. There's a direct way of collaborating and there's indirect way, and we should take advantage of all of that. One, it feels good to celebrate other people. Even just me talking about it right now, it feels really light, and why won't you do things that are good for yourself? Yeah. There's plenty of nice people out there and you can be one of them. And that tones down, some of that jealousy. Um, a lot of this is as far as competition versus collaboration, we have to change. It's about reflecting on how you think about this. Yeah. When a patient chooses another doctor over me, yeah, there may be like a half second of like, oh wait, why? You know, why not me? What makes this other doctor even better than me? But it's just half a second, I don't linger in that because I go right away to saying, good for you that you found someone because I know that, and I think this is important, not everyone is for me. And that's fine. That is totally okay. Again, there are so many people. Not everyone is for me. I am not for everyone. And when we're figuring that out, especially early on, perfect. That's great because that means there's more room for other people who's for me to find me and more time for me to give to other people who I really want to work with. And good for the other person, the other provider who are getting the business. It's good for other people to get business. So much of this is really being okay with just being different, just being you, like embracing your style, embracing your journey, where you are in your journey, whether you're in the beginning or, further along. I don't think it's healthy to change yourself because you want to one up the other person. Because then going back to asking the question, what happens after you one up them, right? What happens then? There's it's not fun to be alone in in that space, but also there's there's no purpose of not of turning this competition from a friendly competition to one that stresses you out.
We just had a Zoffy yesterday in our Sexy, Successful, and Soul Fed Facebook group. And the reason I wanted to start these Zoffies back up is because I wanted to unite the women in my group. And there's over 400 women in there. And only four women showed up. And I was thinking to myself, like, there's so many women in here who want connection, who want collaboration, who want inspiration, who want to learn how to do better in business. But the big strategy is you've got to show up for yourself because I think sometimes, and I'm pretty sure there's a little portion in there who are just watchers. They're just watching everybody and they're afraid because they're comparing themselves. Oh, I'm not like Helen. She's this, that, and this and that. And I'm not nowhere near that. And it's like these zoffies are purposely provided so we can understand one another. Because when you're understanding one another and you actually get to talk to somebody who you might have some type of comparison to in your mind, it allows you to kind of take that comparison out of the way and really understand who this person is instead of prejudging them. So, do you think prejudging people has like an impact on how we're kind of watering the seed of jealousy instead of like love and acceptance?
Yes, prejudging, on the spot judging, post judging, all of that. It doesn't. We have to use a different word, so we do these things differently because our brain we have to like yeah, we try to make sense of things, right? Oh, this is beautiful, or oh, this person is attractive. It's fine to say all of those things. You're describing, right? You're in awe. But then when you start putting the judgment in it, oh, she's attractive. Who does she think she is? Or oh, who do they think they are? The tone right away, changes. So yes, absolutely. That prejudging colors it a lot. Remember this idea of priming. Um, whatever your mind is focused on will determine will shape your experience. And what you're thinking about now determines how the next hour is going to be, the next minute is going to be. So all of those preconceptions about a person, an experience, anything sets you up for how you're going to take that in. Yeah. And if you take a big step back, you realize that we are all humans, we get stressed out. I get this all the time when I'm in session with patients. They're like, your life is so good. You're so calm. I'm like, I'm not calm all the time. I am just like everyone else. I fight with my husband. I fight with my kids. I lose it sometimes when I'm driving, because we're all humans. Our brains have similar neurotransmitters that gives us similar reactions. And one of those, actually, we said serotonin helps us with like trusting and reliability and all of that stuff. But one of the purpose of serotonin too, like from evolution, is social comparison, because we have to we have to be seen so that we can reproduce and pass down our genes. Like our brain like does all of that stuff. But see, over time, because our brain has thickened and we get smarter over generations, all of that stuff, there's just more information to manipulate and more things to think about, that all of these things get muddled. Then the prejudging that you mentioned too, Helen, again, it's an invitation. When you notice that you're doing that, all of these things is influenced by everything, all parts of her story up until now. So we think about, okay, why am I thinking this way? And to make everything super, super, super simple, before you even think about how to think about things, you can just pay attention to, am I feeling good or am I not feeling good? Yeah. Because that's your first signal. Is my body feeling tight or is it feeling open? Am I feeling down? Am I feeling energized? Simple questions. And then give yourself the blessing of a few minutes to just like sit with that and decide what to do about that. Because if you're feeling down, at any moment, you can decide to change it. You're not, if it's like from a big thing, you're not going to solve the big thing right now. But in this moment, you can not have it be so intense. So you're not feeling as down.
Gretchen, these are all so great, such great tips and questions to ask ourselves. And the whole idea of checking in, I think that's huge because I find that we don't check in enough. And that's probably something that we should do periodically throughout the day, is just check in and, take a breather. One of the things that we mentioned earlier was imposter syndrome. How does imposter syndrome contribute to jealousy among women in business? And what are some practical ways to combat it?
We can have probably like 5 podcast episodes about imposter syndrome. It's such a prevalent thing, especially in careers, right? Professional life. So imposter syndrome is one of those like really strong fuel for jealousy. Makes you think that everyone else can do it, everyone else deserves to, everyone else is more qualified, and that you're not. And let's just answer that now. It's not true. It isn't. It's not true. It's not true. It's not true. But it's natural to have that kind of feeling. Usually, imposter syndrome happens when we're going into something new. It's most prevalent there. But that the way I said it's natural is because whenever you have a new thing, a new experience, let's say you've been in the same job, let's say it's the same team or job, but then you have even like a new person coming in. Any change, your brain has to remap how to see the situation. And part of that remapping is it takes energy and it takes stress, to do that. You have this adrenaline rushes because you're trying to like figure out, is this my boss? Am I their boss? Is this like a new space? Like where do I fit in, right? And remember, adrenaline causes all kinds of discomfort. Yeah. Now, as you're feeling all of that, your brain is trying to see, how do I make sense of this thing? I'm feeling bad. It must mean now, if you're not reflecting and checking in, especially if you've had a pattern of comparison, perfectionism, not being enough kind of thinking, this is where it's going to lead. And so again, a daily check-in, like what January says, is very important. I recommend at least once a day, middle of the day, so that if your morning is rough, you can change it by midday when you do that check-in. Yeah. And so there's so many ways to handle this. One of my favorite ones is I keep a rainy day box. We might have talked about this in previous episodes. I have a rainy day box that has my most favorite thank you cards or notes from people, my like friends, even like friends from before, students that I've taught. Sometimes like a patient would email me just like out of the blue, just many years later, just saying all kinds of like just grateful things. And that is so touching, you know. I will bookmark that email and I will put it in a special folder so that when I'm feeling down, I will, I can remember, see all of this evidence outside of me that all of this self-doubt that's fueling imposter syndrome that sets me up for jealousy is being squashed, right away. Because to combat this, you need proof. This is happening because we're not seeing the proof that we are enough, that we are qualified. You've worked so hard to be where you are. You deserve to be exactly where you are. Yeah. And it's hard to see that if you're comparing, right? You're jealous. So this is an invitation to take out that jealousy like blanket to see all of this evidence that has always been there to tell you that you are so deserving and that you have so much impact. Yeah. Your work, I think of this too, that as if you're having imposter syndrome, that must mean that whatever you're doing is so important to you, right? And so if you're passionate about something, I see that as proof that you definitely deserve to be there because you're thinking about this so much that you're creating a whole story about it. Yeah. So take a step back and you need to move that negative energy, negative stress into something useful. Again, an invitation. All of that is just like your body giving you signals. What do you do with this signal? You can drive it anywhere you want. Yeah. This is why your bigger mental health state is so important because if you're feeling junk, yeah, that front brain is not going to work so well and it's not going to give you all the ideas to channel that energy into a better, something more productive or something that makes you feel good. The other thing too is going back to your values is so important. I do this all the time. It buffers me from jealousy or comparison, perfectionism. Because if you are so clear about those key values, and for me, let's say one of them is just like it's kindness or just keep showing up. It's our family value. Yeah. That takes me out of it because that means whatever it is that I'm feeling, jealous, comparing, or whatever, I have to show up for myself, just like what Helen said earlier. And showing up for myself means taking care of those feelings and moving on to another feeling that's more helpful. And then tying to the people that January touched on is you have to have your people who you regularly talk about your dreams with. Yeah. So they can tell you when you're kind of in a loop of imposter syndrome thinking to take you out of it, to call you out, those friends who do that for you to remind you that this evidence that tells you that what you're thinking about yourself and you're doubting yourself is not true is there. It has always been.
I love the rainy box idea. I actually don't remember us talking about that, but thank you for the reminder. If we did, I'm going to create a rainy day box because there are moments, even now, as an author, as a financial strategist, as a podcast host, there are still moments where I feel imposter syndrome. And I feel that way because I don't feel like I'm worthy. I don't feel like I'm at that level where I think in my mind, in my own standard, that I should be. And so thank you for sharing the rainy day box. That is such a great tip. Gretchen, you shared a lot of great tips. Helen, did you have any other questions that we can ask her?
Yeah, just our final question here is what are effective ways to build a strong support network that fosters encouragement and empowerment rather than competition and comparison? It kind of might go hand in hand with the strategies used to turn feelings of jealousy into motivation and collaboration. But this is more about like the support network. How can we develop more of that?
I in general, just when it comes to mental health, I always think about remember your body, mind, and then your environment. So the environment part includes people. I think we have to regularly assess who's around us. Yeah. And ask the question, do the people around you grow you or expand your dreams, expand the way you visualize things, or do they not? Because we have to be honest, you may be excited to collaborate with someone or want someone to mentor you or support you. But if we're not really assessing if they're the right people, it's not going to be a good match, and it's not going to be fun. And then we're at risk of creating a story of, wait, what's wrong with me that this person didn't want to work with me, right? And so, really assessing, like auditing your people is very important. I am very careful about that. So I have my intimate group and the bigger community groups that I'm part of. If it's negative, unhelpful, not uplifting, I will spend less time around that. Um, I would chime in if I want to stay in the group and when it's appropriate, but I will pivot when the general vibe is not adding to my life anymore. Yeah. Because again, maybe at this point, I'm not for them or they're not for me. Right. And so I think it's important to be really honest about that. I'm not trying to move away from like challenges or stress by being around these people or my certain people or groups. I'm just, there's just some spaces where you realize that maybe this is all about like venting or pity party. And just for me personally, I'm not about that. Some people, that's how they grow, and that's okay. You do what works for you. But my point is, you got to be honest with yourself so you know the type of people and support network that you're looking for. And and so also because it can't work for me because my job is to lift people up and give them hope like all day long. And so I need an environment that helps me stay that way, and be that way because that's what my career is based on. Yeah, that's what people need from me at my work. Yeah. And so finding the right people, I think we shouldn't be afraid to find people who are really can boost us up. Yeah. So we have to be, and this might mean people who are doing more and having more and have been your industry, much longer, and that's great. This is this means we have to be brave. We have to explore different circles. We have to welcome invitations when they ask us to, check things out. But we also have to be responsible and do our research because we don't want to just say yes to everything. Like things we're saying yes to has to be aligned with your value, with where you want to go. And also remember that those can change too over time. As you go through a journey, you learn about yourself, where you want to go, all of those things. Um, so you have to just be really honest about what feels right for you. For example, maybe 5, 10 years ago, I enjoyed going to big places, conferences, all that stuff. But now I like smaller groups better, like and one-on-one. It's just I think when you get older, some people are just like that, and that's where I am. I'm getting older. And last thing, as far as like building the support network. So we talked about the right people, the right values, people who grow you, all that stuff. But in order to um, attract people like that, we have to be that. Right? So if I want to be in a network, I want to build a support group that's just encouraging, empowering, all of that stuff. I have to be that person first. So I have to be intentional about encouraging people, cheering people on, having people talk about their goals because I know I want to talk about it. It's energizing. So I have to be that for others too. So think about the people who are closest to me, like other women in my circle. Um, I know that okay, we just get each other. We're not exactly the same, um, but we have many similar traits, like feeling strong, independent, powerful, sexy, all that stuff. But we're all busy, but we all want simple things. And so the point is to be yourself, and the right people will be there. I think that one of the not so good things that worst things that we can do is pretend to be something or someone, and then you attract people who sees that inauthentic version. And then now it's not fun, it's not working. It's just they like you for the person that you pretended to be, which is not the way to go. Yeah. And plus, it takes so much work. Why would you want, you're already busy. Why would you want to work more?
I feel like we should have another podcast about this because this is such a great topic to talk about, especially dealing with women, our emotions, and in the business world. Because we're all either workers, even as a stay-at-home mom, you're still the CEO of your house. And these are all things that you are going to be feeling. I know I was as a stay-at-home mom, and I compared myself to other women, and so these all the tips that you shared, Dr. Gretchen, have been amazing. Thank you so much. Uh, I do need to wrap this up though, so let's wrap this up. And where can we find you, Dr. Gretchen?
I am now on YouTube. I'm at The Mental Path. And there's all kinds of stuff there. It has all my links to other socials. And I have you can also find me at thementalpath.com.
Helen, where can we find you?
Awesome. Yes, you can find me Hell of a Journey with one L. You can also get your copy of my book, Nothing Sexier Than Freedom, and memoir nonfiction rated RX on Amazon. It's also available on Audible. Follow my journey on Sexy Freedom or Helen Edwards. Google me, I'll pop right up. I'm writing the new version and the sequel. January, where can they find you?
Thank you, everyone, for listening. We appreciate you. We appreciate your loyalty and for sharing our podcast. And Dr. Gretchen, as always, you have been amazing, and we are just so thankful for having you here. You are a wealth of knowledge, and your voice is like velvet, and I just enjoy hearing you talk. You can find me January Liddell, Lid as in David, D as in David, ELL.com. You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram, Anchored Financial LLC, or Alina the Honeymaker, both on Facebook and Instagram. I did write a children's book about financial literacy called Alina the Super Saver, and I am currently in production for the second book called Dynamo Spending Spree. All are available on Amazon.com and Barnes& and Nobles, Walmart, a lot of different places. If you're in Indiana, Open Bookstore, I'm sorry, Open Door. Wyoming, I just want to shout out to Wyoming, Windy City Books. Thank you, Miranda. And there's other places. It's in the works. So that's where you can find me. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Aloha.
Ahí, adios.
Want to hear more?
Visit us at sexyfreedommedia.com.